The reason I developed soul lightening acupressure started when I was very young, actually, before I was 30 years old. I had a crisis which caused me to look at life on Earth in a very broad way. I assessed that Earth, the way it was going, was in a lot of trouble, and I wanted to be of help. But I couldn't imagine how I could help. I finally reasoned and meditated out that the same thing the Dalai Lama says, that only individual transformation could make a real difference on the earth. And it seemed to me, even at that time, that if individual souls were able to follow the divine directives that they carried within them, if they were able to lead their lives according to what was really right for them, if we had enough individuals in that kind of situation, it would make a difference in the world. Anyway, I decided that this was the way I could help the best. So I started to construct a work that would cover all of that. It had to start with the body because I learned very early that old traumas and old unresolved issues are usually stored in the physical body. So we had to have a means of clearing those things from the physical body. At that time, I was an intellectual kind of student and I really didn't know anything about body work. But I realized that the body work would be a necessary component. I didn't know how to choose the right body work, so I prayed for the right body to come to me. And I've told students many times, literally within a couple of weeks, that body work was actually dropped in my lap, literally, in the form of a manual of Jinshin Jitsu acupressure. I couldn't imagine what this was. It made no sense to me at all. It looked like calculus formulations or something. But I decided to study this form of acupressure, which I did for many years. And as I practiced it, I came to realize the extraordinary power and right motive that this acupressure had embedded within it. It was created by the master Jiro Morai, who gave it as a gift to the world after he formulated it. And furthermore, he devoted his entire life to developing it. So having this acupressure modality in hand, literally, I treated my little children with it as they grew up. And in the first year I practiced it with them, we brought our doctor bills to half, because I was in the practice of scooping them up and running them off to a doctor every time they got a cold or flu or something. After learning that acupressure, I treated almost everything they ever got with that, with great results. So as I was practicing this and really realizing its depth and power, I was simultaneously sorting through how would you most efficiently and truthfully address the mind and also the emotions. So I had a degree in psychology, but all the psychologies I had studied were usually analytical, purely from a mental point of view, and I already knew that the body had to be included or the work wouldn't be complete. So I was sorting through all of this in a theoretical kind of way when I met Arnold Mindell and process work. And this process work became the key to following the individual mind and emotions where they were in the person, rather than tacking some theoretical label on them and then sorting them through the description in a textbook about this is what was wrong with them and so on. His process work of following the individual through their development, through their growth, meshed perfectly with my idea of following the soul to its natural growth and its natural completion in the life. So I studied with Arnold Mindell for 10 years, and I taught in his first process work intensive in Zurich, Switzerland. And in that way, I was able to merge the acupressure work, body work, with the method of tracking the mind and the emotions through their traumas, through their growth shoots, but always with the aim to come eventually to the direct contact with soul and direct communication with soul, which of course I've always known is connected with the divine order. So all of this took about 15 or 20 years to develop in its completion. And now what we teach in the work is process acupressure, which includes the entire consciousness component in a process manner. And we teach clinical acupressure to offer the fabulous method of really helping people physically and energetically. And when I wrote the book Soul Lightening, Awakening to Soul Consciousness, we started calling our work Soul Lightening work. And at some point, Kathy Miller said, well, why don't we just go ahead and tell the truth of what we're actually doing? Why don't we call it Soul Lightening Acupressure? And I thought that was very bold and a little bit edgy, but I thought, but it's right. And so I can't remember the year we did that. But that's how it got its full name. There are two major parts to this work of Soul Lightening Acupressure, and clinical acupressure is the first component. The reason that we teach it as a separate acupressure modality is that it is so extraordinarily balancing, healing, and empowering to people to receive this kind of energy balance in the body, whether they ever dip into consciousness or not. We realized that people who work only with the body, as say massage therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, would have an adjunct therapy in this form of acupressure that would be extraordinarily helpful and more extensive to their treatment patterns than they have already. And so we have separated out clinical acupressure to serve a broad population. It has to do with body integrity, body wholeness. Now, my interest from the very beginning was to create a work that would deal with mind, body, emotions, and soul simultaneously. And that's the work of process acupressure. Because we're using this very powerful acupressure modality as an energetically balancing base for exploration and empowerment of consciousness. What we're aiming at is nothing short of holistic consciousness that is guided by the individual's soul. And this is quite an extensive work. It takes time, it takes exploration in the mind, in the emotions. It takes release in the physical body. And finally, it takes the contact and the ability to follow the soul. So those are the two broad branches of soul lightening acupressure. After